Welcome back to the Heal with God podcast. Each week we explore a new theme for healing. I'm your host, Heather O'Brien, and today we're going to be talking about how to heal seasonal depression by hearing God's voice, because the holidays can stir up more than just cheer. This conversation originally aired over on Witness the Wonder with my friend Christina Smith, who invited me to unpack what it really looks like to walk through grief with God during the holidays. If the season feels heavier than it should, you're not alone. Together, we're going to talk about practical ways to navigate grief, honor your loved ones, and experience real Christian healing with prayer, so you can move from surviving the holidays to actually healing in them. Let's dive in. Hey there, welcome to Heal with God. I'm Heather O'Brien, your prophetic healing coach. This is your place where we go deeper into hearing God's voice and finding your healing through Jesus. If you're a Christian who's prayed all the prayers but you still feel stuck and you're ready for breakthrough, you're in the right place. Let's dive in, because healing with God is possible for you too. I know how exhausting it is to keep showing up for God, doing all the right things, and then still feel like you can't hear Him clearly. You wonder if something's wrong with you, if maybe you're the one person He can't reach. I've been there. That's why I created the Prophetic Healing Workshop, to give you a safe space to finally hear His voice for yourself and discover what's really been blocking you. In 60 minutes, I'm going to walk you through my 3-step spirit-led process to uncover the root, break the lies, and release the weight you've been carrying. It's live, it's free, and you don't have to have it all together. Just come as you are. And if you sign up early, you might even get the live coaching and prayer. So I want you to go to heatherobrien.net/workshop. That's heatherobrien.net/workshop, because God's ready to speak to you and about your healing.
Welcome to Witness the Wonder. I'm your host, Christina Smith. Today I'm joined by Heather O'Brien, host of the Heal with God podcast. In our last episode, Heather guest hosted and walked me through sharing a personal story about how God jolted me awake at 2 a.m. and gave me a voicemail from my brother that would become one of the most priceless gifts. Just 1 week later, November 11, 2023, my brother unexpectedly passed away from a heart attack. And then 37 days later, on December 18th of 2023, I unexpectedly lost my mom too. So within 27 months, I lost my dad, my only sibling, and my mom. So walking into Christmas that year felt like grief was everywhere. And yet, in the middle of that grief, God met me. He even delivered me from something I had struggled with for many years, seasonal depression. Today, Heather is here to help us talk about how to navigate through the holidays and how to hold on to hope when the season feels heavy. Heather, welcome back.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm excited to talk with you, but I know these are really heavy conversations, and we know God is here and He is going to help us just deliver the message that whoever's listening needs to hear today.
Absolutely. Heather, holidays are often portrayed as these joyful, full of celebration moments, but for many people, like me in 2023, they're grieving, and they can be some of the hardest days of the year. Why does grief seem to feel heavier around the holidays?
It might be different for everyone, but I would say it's because of the memories, right? We have all these special memories of being with family on those particular times. You think about it, we actually stop everything that we're doing for holidays. Work closes down, and we on purpose get together with these people that we grew up with, whether we like them or not, right? They're our friends during the year. We've even had conversations with them. The holidays are for those people. And you think about it, like whenever they're not there anymore and the holiday still is, who are you spending that time with now? You might be all alone. And so grief can really feel heavy when you're all alone. That's probably when it's heaviest, honestly, right? You're alone with your thoughts, and that can be so loud and deafening, thinking about all those memories. And you might even fantasize about the memories. I don't know if I should go there for a minute, but it's like, were they really that great? Maybe they were. Maybe they were for you. But I think sometimes in hindsight, we fantasize about events and people when really a relationship may or may not have been as great as it was. And now it just is non-existent. So you just feel some kind of way without that person there in your life.
That is good, Heather. I'm going to go there for a minute because you saying that reminded me of two things. One, when my brother passed away, my mom had to come live with me because she had health issues and she couldn't live on her own. And she ended up moving in the day before Thanksgiving. Well, every Thanksgiving, we went to my mom's house for Thanksgiving my entire life. And so now this year, I'm hosting Thanksgiving at my house. And it was like a last minute thing. So I'm throwing everything together. And my brother's not there, feeling that loss. And then the second part of that, with my brother passing away, now my mom was always really focused on my brother. And so I had secretly been hoping that now that she was moving in with me, that we would have this time together. And I didn't just grieve her in the holidays. I was grieving the loss
Oh,
of those
come on.
hopes. I grieved
Yeah,
the
you
loss
just
of
went
the
there.
hopes of the relationship that I was hoping to have with her.
Whoa, man, this is powerful. I mean, I did not expect to go there, but like people, someone needs to hear this. Someone needs to hear this. That's what fantasy does to us, right? It really invigorates us and it creates all these imaginary stories. I could see this in lots of different parts of our life. Okay, for just a second here. I know we're talking about people passing away, but what about for those who are grieving because they don't have a spouse? They never got married. They haven't found their person. That's a place of really deep seasonal grief for some people. I remember that as a young girl. Like, whenever the holidays come around, that's when you see all the romantic holiday movies. And I didn't have anyone. Right now, I was young when I got married. So I started fantasizing very young about something I never had. Right. And that's what fantasy does to us. It is a lie. Okay, I'm a biblical teacher here. So I want to drill down for just a minute. I want to tell you what's really happening is we're coveting. We're coveting what we've never had, what we don't have, what's not ours. And that's what fantasy does. It's a coveting partnership. You think about the law of Moses, there's 10 laws that we're not supposed to break. And they kind of get summarized. Jesus summarizes them into love God, love your neighbor as you love yourself. But the 10th law is don't covet. And we don't really talk about that very much because we think about it. I don't know, maybe it seems like a weird word, but it's jealousy, right? It's fantasy. And so the devil gets his hooks in there when it seems normal to fantasize about something. I'm even thinking right now, maybe this is a word for someone listening, that I remember someone fantasizing about a father, and it might be similar to your story, Christina, but she had a dad and he had mental problems, and she was always looking for a father figure in her life. It was just this hook that the enemy had in her. She was looking in all of her church leaders for that spiritual father and this and that. And I'm like, this is not healthy. I had a father growing up and we didn't have a bad relationship, but we didn't have a great relationship. And like, what are you seeking here? Because really, God's going to meet all your needs. All your needs are met in Christ Jesus. So let's wrap this back up and go back to the story here. We're talking about like honoring grief in the season. I want to be able to honor the grief, but I also want to be able to separate it from what's not really grief. It's misplaced grief. It's this fantasy of grief. We really need to differentiate the two. I don't know if you were prepared for this conversation here, but like there's two different kinds of grief. I call it crying profitable tears and crying unprofitable tears. And so we want to plan to grieve, but we also want to plan to grieve with God. And I call that the tears that actually profit something, because God says he will comfort those who mourn. He's there and near to the brokenhearted. But if you're just fantasizing, you're not mourning. Do you get where I'm going? Like, like
Yeah.
our prayers sometimes are like these whines. I mean, I've done it myself. I'm not just pointing fingers here. I know all
Yeah.
about this. It's just like I'm whining because I want something. I'm coveting after this thing that I should have. Like, what? According to who?
Seasonal depression is common for a lot of people. A lot of people go through it. So, are there any healthy ways that people can address it during the holidays, especially?
Yeah. So I would say the first thing is to grieve on purpose and plan to grieve. Like grieve on purpose and plan to grieve. So I think that's two different steps. Number one, you have to put it in your calendar. That might sound really awkward, but especially if you know it's coming. For instance, I know people who they already know the yearly time when their person has passed is a time when they're going to be sad. I know some people, they'll plan to go to the beach on purpose. They turn off everything. That is a plan. That's a plan to mourn and not be like busy, not be about your own busyness so much so that you can't actually grieve. And so plan it. It doesn't have to be a beach vacation though. It could just be, I got triggered today. I started feeling sad, and I'm going to put in my calendar at 4 o'clock. I don't have anything else to do. And so I'm going to go talk to God about this for, I don't know, 5, 10, 15 minutes. Like, don't elongate it just because it doesn't have to be a weekend away. It doesn't have to be so many tears that you've got a headache, right? Like, we can plan to grieve in a way that fits in our schedule. I'm all about our schedule, right? Because who has time for that? That's what I've heard so many times is people say, yeah, that sounds good, Heather, but I don't have time for all that because I'm going to have a headache. My eyes are going to be all puffy. And I'm like, why do you have to cry for 30 minutes? Why do you have to cry so hard that you get a headache? You don't have to. You could just plan, okay, I have 5 minutes to talk to God about this hurt in my heart. Really, grieving is talking to God. So a minute ago, I said it's two things. It's plan to grieve and grieve like profitably with profitable tears. So kind of the healthy way is to make sure that you're not grieving a fantasy, right? And if you are, that needs to end. I hope the fear of the Lord comes into this because I really want you to be healthy, right? So it's not healthy to keep fantasizing because that's actually coveting. So if you feel that conviction right now, that's something that you want to plan to talk to God about and you want to repent of. So grieving the loss of someone, the death of someone, maybe even like seasonal depression could be like, this is a memory of when something bad happened, but they didn't die. Or, we could grieve for a number of reasons. Our feelings got hurt around this time of year. We could grieve because, like you said, things aren't going normal. I really resonated with you a minute ago when you said, I had to host Thanksgiving dinner all of a sudden. And even that, there's a little bit of trauma going on. I don't know if you noticed that. So trauma is what you're grieving. So trauma can look like a lot of things. It doesn't have to look like you went to war. It doesn't have to look like the death of a person. So I just want to make sure that's really important. I remember when the first time I started dating my husband, when we were dating seriously, I went to his parents' house for Thanksgiving and it was a little trauma for me. Not because anything bad happened. It was new. The trauma was that it was new. It was different. It was the beginning of a new season and it was a change. I remember feeling like I didn't get to experience the foods that I loved and grew up with because I was with a different family now. They didn't eat what I used to eat. Like that's a mini trauma. And it might sound ridiculous, but like I was sad about it. And so that's a healthy way to process like, God, it really hurt that things were new this year. And you can cry about that for a minute. I give you permission. I really do. So that's some healthy ways to address during the holiday. There's other healthy ways like cry profitable tears, plan it in your schedule, but also plan to not isolate yourself. Plan to do something with other people so your thoughts aren't just focused on yourself. Plan to do something outside of your comfort zone. Even if you don't want to, plan to go outside of your feelings. Your feelings shouldn't dictate what you do in life. Actually, the Holy Spirit should. Now we're talking to Christians here. I mean, we want to be led by the Spirit of God. And so if you're isolating, you're making it all about you, and you're probably not taking your thoughts captive. Can we go there for a minute? Because when we're full of depression, we're focusing on the past. We're focusing on what could have been, what should have been, what might have been. We're focusing on traumas. We're focusing on ourselves. We're not taking thoughts captive, really, honestly. Like, so when the thought comes, you make it obey Christ by saying, hey, now you could do it a couple different ways, right? If this is just, I'm sad because I'm grieving, you need to honor that. You honor that thought by putting a time on your calendar when you're going to plan to grieve that if you don't have time right then. That is taking the thought captive even in itself. It doesn't have to be a bad thought. It's just capturing the thought and saying, do you obey Christ? I don't know. Let me examine you. Will you look like grief? Am I allowed to grieve? Is it coveting or is it real grief? Right? So I'm examining the thought, taking that thought captive and looking at it and make it obey Christ. In other words, it needs to fit into your calendar. It needs to be time where you're praying through it, not just crying through it. That is completely different. And then you really just want to honor that thought if it needs to be honored, and you want to trample that thought if it needs to be trampled.
Did you know gold and silver have been trusted to protect wealth for generations? With Birch Gold, you can easily roll over your IRA or your 401k into a tax-sheltered account backed by physical gold and silver. It's simple, secure, and gives you peace of mind knowing your future is protected. To learn more and get started, visit ChristinaSmithOfficial.com. That's ChristinaSmithOfficial.com. You know, it's funny that you're sharing that because I'm thinking back to when I lost my mom that Christmas in 2023. My mom died on a Monday. Well, we had a family tradition that my sister-in-laws and I did with our kids. Every year we would get together and we decorate Christmas cookies. That had become a family tradition, and it was scheduled for the Friday after my mom died. My sister-in-laws were beautiful. They wanted to be mindful of me, but at the same time, this was a family tradition. So they were like, "What do you want to do, Chris?" They like focused on what my needs were, which I appreciate that a lot. But I told them, I said, "You know what? I want to do it." It was actually planned to be at my house. They're like, "If you want to continue to have it, we can do it at our house, or you can, whatever you want to do." I said, "No, I'm fine with it being here." For me, that was a break from grief. I said, "Yes, let's do it," because I needed that break. Yes, it was 5 days after my mom passed away, but I needed that moment away and separate and from grief for a minute, just a break from it. And so what I
Right.
realized in doing that is that joy and grief can coexist.
Whoa, come on.
That was like mind blowing to me at the time. Like I could literally enjoy the holidays even in the midst of great loss and grief.
Yeah.
That I
Wow,
could
that's
shelve
so
my grief, like you said, there's good and like profitable and not like for that moment, I shelved my grief to say, you know what? I need to focus on something else that brings life right now. I
yeah.
was still gonna have to walk through the funeral and everything else after Christmas. In that moment, I needed that. I think that's an important key that you mentioned, make time for grief. But especially during the holidays, I think it's important to set your grief aside to
Hmm. Yeah.
be able
And
to
you think
enjoy.
about, well, I'm just thinking about all the other people that are involved. And while you're grieving, everything's just not about you. And I say that with as much tenderness as I can. I hope you can hear my compassion. I'm so sorry for what you're going through, but also everything's not about you. And like you were supposed to be doing this with other people. You're supposed to be making cookies with other people. And that was part of their memories too. That was part of their tradition too. And I bet they were a little bit sad too, because your mom was part of their tradition too, right?
That year she would have been, but she wasn't normally. No, my mom rarely
I
left her
gotcha.
house.
I gotcha.
Yeah,
So it was,
but they were grieving for me.
I
Everybody,
gotcha.
when they arrived, for many of them, the first time they saw me, so they hugged me, and we had that cry right at the beginning. But I'm like, you know what? The reason I'm doing this is I don't want to cry tonight. I want to have
Yeah.
joy. And
Yeah.
so yeah, they were mindful and very comforting at the beginning, but then it's like, let's do this.
Yeah, I think there's something really powerful that you just said I wanna hone into. You said, "Wanna have joy," and I heard you, like, in my spirit say, "I choose joy."
Yes.
Yeah, I think that we have to remember that it's actually a choice, because joy is a person. Oh, can I go there for a minute?
Mm,
Joy is a person, and you can choose the personhood of Jesus. You can choose to think the thoughts that you want to think. You can choose to go bake cookies, or you can choose to go cry in your bed. You can choose to wallow, or you can choose to get up and serve. Now, I'm not saying that we dismiss grief because grief is really important. I think it's both. It's like a quarter. A quarter has a head and a tail. There's two sides to it, but it's still a quarter. And you are still God's child. You can have joy and you can have grief, and He's there for all of it. Even in Ecclesiastes, that's some of my favorite things to meditate on in times of this. There is a season and a time and a purpose for everything. But at 4 p.m., you could have a season of joy while you bake cookies. I just feel the joy of the Lord
yes.
on that. And at 7 p.m., you can have a moment of grief and sorrow. And you can remember your lost loved ones. You can remember that thing that didn't feel good. Now, I want to be careful here because grief should be for a season, but it should not continue in a pattern that tears you down and destroys your life. So if you don't have two sides of the coin, if it's only grief, where's God in that? Because God's all of that. He says, we'll rejoice with those who rejoice and we'll mourn with those who mourn. Are you rejoicing with those who are rejoicing? Because while you're sad, I bet something else cool happening for someone else. And they might feel weird telling you about their cool thing, but man, they wish they could celebrate with you. So we want to honor that, right? We want to honor the seasons other people are in, even if we're in a different season. So for instance, I'm thinking about like as a parent, I've heard this a few times from clients over the years, and they come to me for help and they're wondering why they're still depressed. Here's the reason: they never really grieved the loss of a loved one because they were raising children. They give me this excuse of, I was raising kids, so I just stayed busy. I didn't have time to sit down and cry. And I would say to you, honey, you better make that time because it will stick with you. Do you want to be depressed 20 years from now? No, no one does. So you have to process grief, but it doesn't have to be all day. That's just my heart in this, is just to make sure that you understand that grief is something that you can do in pockets of time. God has made it where you can still keep living life, where there's two sides to the quarter. You can have joy and you can mourn. You can grieve and be comforted. Listen, he is close to the brokenhearted and he comforts those who are mourning. So if you're not mourning, you're not getting the comfort that you need. Therefore, you're going to stay depressed. And I don't want that for you.
So, how can someone prepare themselves spiritually and emotionally through the holidays? Is there any practical steps or something that they can do?
This is the moment that you can prep for it. I feel like we're talking about this subject early enough in the season that you can actually prepare yourself. And you could do this in a way that honors your time, your life, the way that you like to plan for things. So maybe it looks like on this particular day, when I have a time in my slot, I'm going to honor my sadness, my grief. And usually it's about a person, right? It's generally about a person. And if it's an okay grief, I hope you hear my heart in this. It's not a fantasy grief. If it's an okay grief, like I'm sad that this person's not here, I'm sad that we're going to be doing Thanksgiving without them. Maybe you could honor them with bringing their favorite dish to Thanksgiving, right? You could, like, maybe they always brought the sweet potato souffle and it won't exist unless you make it this year because everybody always brings something else. Maybe you could go ahead and find out what that recipe is that they made for that. And you could plan ahead. And everybody, as they're eating that, they're remembering that loved one, right? That is an honorable thing that you could go ahead and start planning to do. Same thing for Christmas. Like, let's think about the Christmas holidays. Maybe you had some traditions that involved them, and without them, are you just not going to do the tradition? Or can you plan to do the tradition and honor them in a way? Maybe it's they brought a certain kind of cookie and maybe you can learn how to make that cookie. Maybe, smells and tastes really bring triggers. And they can be good triggers. I feel like I just want to prepare you that you can grieve and have good triggers. You could be crying while you're eating a cookie. I remember how much I loved that they made these cookies. Now I learned how to make them. I'm going to teach my kids how to make them. And we're going to keep this tradition going. That's some planning that might need to be in your heart, in your mind, that you could purposefully think out how you could plan to grieve on purpose. That is literally grieving on purpose. That's making your tears profitable because you still might have tears. And I want to say that's okay.
For friends and family who want to be supportive but don't know what to say or do, what are some meaningful ways that they can help someone who's grieving during the holiday?
That's kind of tricky. Sometimes you just don't know what to say. And you don't want to dismiss it as if it's a big elephant in the room. So sometimes the best thing to do or say is to say that, I call it throwing spaghetti on the wall. You just say, hey, I understand that this might be a really hard time for you, but I don't know what to say or do. Is there anything I could say or do to comfort you in this time, right? Throw spaghetti on the wall. Those conversations are usually the best when you don't have a pre-planned, orchestrated way of meeting their needs that might not actually meet their needs. To just ask, because everybody's going to be different, right? Your friends asked you, do you want to make cookies at their house? Do we even want to do this? That was like throwing spaghetti on the wall. They asked, they addressed the elephant in the room. We understand this is a really hard time for you right now, and we don't want to make you uncomfortable. So I think that's really important, is to just ask plainly and let the other person lead the way in that season, except for if it's to their harm. Can we go there for a minute? Because sometimes it can go both ways. So it depends on how emotionally mature they are too. Now you don't want to push someone over the edge, but also you might want to nudge them and give them opportunities, right? So you might say, I understand this is a really hard season for you. And so I'm inviting you over, and I would really love it if you come. And I would say this to you. I don't know if you know this, but as a church leader, I often really need to get more hands involved, and it's hard to get people to volunteer. Okay, I might be giving away my secrets here, but I ask them to do something really specific. I give them a specific job, and I make sure they know how much I need them. That's the thing that you could do for this person who they're going to stay isolated. But if they feel like they're needed, not just wanted, right? Like, we need your cookies here. We won't have these cookies here. We need your sweet potato pie. Like, we really need it. Can you bring it and plan to come and join our Thanksgiving meal? No one makes it like you.
That's such good advice.
So you could go both ways, right? You could plan ahead, throw spaghetti on the wall, ask them. And if that doesn't work, if you feel them retreating and isolating, and you know that's not healthy for them, which we know we have to be alone for a little while. But if you feel them retreating, just invite them in with a task at hand that you need accomplished. Yeah.
So good. So good. I love that. So, Heather, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today. Is there any last recommendations or words of advice that you would want to leave with our listeners today?
Yeah. Grief is something we often bypass. And so while you might have seasonal depression, I would say to you, how many seasons has this gone on? And I'm saying this as compassionate as I know. We always want to remember our loved ones, but how much is it affecting your life and your livelihood and your relationships, your finances, your physical body even? Because it seeps in, and if you don't deal with grief and properly process it, it will affect every area and nook and cranny of your life. I don't want that for you. So I would like to offer you every third Monday of the month, I do a live prophetic healing workshop. And I would love for you to come. It's free. It's a 60-minute time where we come and I'm going to coach you. So if you come into me and you say, I've got seasonal depression, I'm going to lead you through what I call the ABCs with the Holy Spirit leading the whole way. And we're going to get down to the root of the issue. Why do you still have this seasonal depression? Now, I understand if it's just seasonal, it's just occasional. We all have triggers. We all have moments when we, miss someone. But if it's something that's really affecting your life, I want you to really, I'm compelling you to get down to the root of it so that the enemy doesn't have a foothold in your life, because he will. And if you're not living out the abundant life that Jesus died for you to have, I want that for you. So I welcome you. If you go to heatherobrien.net/workshop, you could come to the prophetic healing workshop and we'll walk you through it. It's heatherobrien.net/workshop. And I'd love to invite you there. Otherwise, jump over to the Heal with God podcast. I'm on every one of your favorite players, and you can binge listen right now if you're ready.
Thank you, Heather. I encourage you to check out her podcast, Heal with God. You'll find so much encouragement and wisdom there. I just want to say thank you for sharing your wisdom and heart today, Heather. And to you listening, I just want to remind you that grief is real and it can feel heavy, but God is close to the brokenhearted and he can meet you even in your darkest seasons. I know because I've been there and he did it for me. And he's no respecter of persons. What he did for me, he will do for you as well. The very season that I thought might break me, he actually used it to set me free from years of seasonal depression.
If this episode spoke to you, I want you to take a moment to experience real healing firsthand in the live prophetic healing workshop that's actually happening today. If you're listening to this the day this episode releases, November 17th, it happens at 1 p.m. Eastern, and there's still time for you to join us. If you've missed it, hey, I do this every third Monday of the month, so you can go ahead and sign up for the next live prophetic healing workshop. In this free 60-minute session, I'm going to guide you through how to hear God's voice for your own healing, especially if you've been battling grief, anxiety, or seasonal depression. Join now at heatherobrien.net/workshop. And don't forget to check out Christina Smith's podcast, Witness the Wonder, for more powerful testimonies of God's presence in the middle of pain. And until next time, remember, healing is possible when you hear God's voice. And I'm praying that blessings and favor chase you down. Whew, that was a whole word, wasn't it? Thanks for spending this time with me on Heal with God. Just a reminder, I'm a licensed minister, not a licensed therapist. So this is all about spiritual encouragement and prayer, not replacing your doctor's advice. And if you haven't already, I want you to go grab your spot for the next free live workshop at heatherobrien.net/workshop. I'll walk you through my 3-step spirit-led process to hear God and heal what's really going on. Until next time, I'm praying blessings and favor chase you down.